Hey, this is Jeff, and welcome back to Fallout 3 Pacifism and More. Last time we agreed to find 30 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum for Ronald Laren, who's going to give us double what Sierra would pay because he wants to impress her. We have 26 in the souvenir locker, and she said the Nuka-Cola Bottling Plant might have info about locations they shipped samples to, so that's where we're headed. As we'll see shortly, we've already been to all of those places and grabbed the Quantum, but there are 4 guaranteed Quantums at the factory, which will be just enough to complete the quest. Now, whenever I've talked about a 100% no-kill run, I meant modding around the parts of the main quest that require killing, as measured by reaching the ending slideshow with the people killed and creatures killed counters on the Pip-Boy stats screen at 0. I didn't mean I was going to do 100% of everything there is to do in the game. I'm not going to tag every map marker or grab every collectible, which isn't even possible anyway. Like, you can't collect all the skill books in a single run because some of them come with upgrades to the 10-penny suite and some of them come with upgrades to the Megaton house, and you can only have one player home or the other depending on how you complete Power of the Atom. But speaking of side quests, it occurred to me there are only 2 we haven't done at this point, Agatha's Song and Oasis. Well, 2 named side quests. There are a bunch of unmarked quests, some of them repeatable so they can never technically be complete, like turning in scrap metal to Walter, and I'm not doing all of those. But it feels like it'd be a missed opportunity not to expand the definition of 100% to include all the named side quests, since there are only 2 left. Unfortunately, there's no organic way for Luce to start either one. I mean, there's obviously been a bit of premeditation in the way I've done things, like taking Grady's message to Girdershade, and what a surprise, Sierra had a quest for us. We should probably start sneaking at this point. Raiders hang out on the highway over there. But overall, I think it's been at least vaguely plausible from a role-playing perspective. Finding Agatha's house when Luce has specifically avoided randomly exploring the wasteland is a stretch, but let's just say on one of her previous visits to Meresti, her psychic powers told her there was someone in need of assistance nearby, but she was too busy to follow up at the time. Yeah, that's the ticket. And Oasis, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Vending machines have a really low chance of spawning Quantum, but you never know. Nope. But there is one that's guaranteed around the other side of the building, in a truck by the loading dock. Grab that one before we head inside. I forget which truck it is. Not that one. There it is. And some regular Nuka. Decent value to weight ratio, no reason not to take that. Now, into the factory. There are 2 groups of enemies in here, robots and nukalurks. The robots are mostly protectrons with a Nuka-Cola paint job, which shouldn't be a problem with robotics expert. Nukalurks are mirelurks mutated by the isotope they use to make Quantum, and they are nasty. Below level 8, they have the same stats as a basic mirelurk, but above that, they're the same as a mirelurk hunter, so we do not want to screw around with them. Fortunately, they're mostly in the offices and mixing vats, not on the main factory floor. Disable any robots near the lobby so they don't surprise us on the way out. The shipping manifest and 3 bottles of Quantum are on this level, but they're behind a very hard locked door. If you don't have lockpick 100, you have to go through the mixing vats and the offices to get to the other side of it. At which point there's a switch that opens it so you can leave without backtracking through the whole dungeon. The door under that red light, in fact. I thought there was a skill book in here, but I might have been thinking of another building with one of those curved reception desks. Anyway, the good news is Luce does have lockpick 100, or technically 95, but with the utility suit it's 100, so we won't need to deal with any nukalurks. That means we'll be skipping some good loot, but no. Disable this robot. The nukalurks have much better perception than the robots, and the game spawns them in places so it's virtually guaranteed they'll spot you no matter how good your sneak skill is, unless you use a stealth boy, so we're not doing that. Now I'll put on the utility suit and pick this lock. I'll probably cut most of that out, but if you're paying close attention to my inventory, you'll see I broke 4 picks. Payback for all the times I hit the right spot on the first try by blind luck. It's looking right at the catwalk. Just how bad is your peripheral vision? Pretty bad. Good. Yeah, that's the room we want right there. There's a terminal that lets you select a product and start the assembly line. It breaks down almost immediately, but you do get 3 quantums. And there they are. Grab these and then go up and download the shipping manifest. The shipping supervisor is a Mr. Handy named Milo, and there are 4 ways to get the password for the shipping terminal from him. Kill him, not an option for lose. Show him an employee ID, which I think is in the mixing vats, so we won't be getting that either. Or talk to him, and either pass a hard speech check or use the robotics expert to override his security protocols. So guess which one we'll be doing? Are you really not going to move? Milo's right downstairs, and you're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I'm making this harder than it needs to be. We have 30 quantums. We don't need the shipping manifest. It lists 3 places where sample shipments were sent, and like I said, we already got the quantum from all 3 of them. And I don't need to show you the note. I can just tell you where they are. The Super Duper Mart, where we went for Moira, Eulogy's Pad at Paradise Falls, which I picked up when we went to rescue the kids from Lamplight, and Old Olney, which is a massive troll because they're not actually in Old Olney, and if you go there, it's swarming with deathclaws. They're actually in a crashed truck on the way to Old Olney, which we passed on the way to the Republic of Dave to get one of the keys for Crowley. Anyway, back to Megaton to pick up the rest. I didn't bring it with me just in case there was too much loot in here and we got over encumbered, but we're not even close. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Here's all the quantum I'm carrying.
Well, this should be enough to fill that stupid machine of hers. Thanks for all your help, but our transaction is done. I'll take any extras off your hands for now, but then I'm done with these disgusting drinks. They taste horrible. Now to put the moves on my lady. Come and watch an expert at work.
I think it's weird that we get negative karma for that. I mean, Ronald's a creep, and his interest in Sierra is mostly physical, but he doesn't harass her, much less assault her or anything. She's an adult. She can make her own choices. Correct ones, by the way, because even after he gives her the quantum, she keeps him squarely in the friend zone. And I'm not going to watch his painful seduction attempt. Let's go see why the old spidey senses were tingling around Meresti. Maybe the negative karma for giving Ronald the quantum is to balance out the positive karma you get if you give them to Sierra, but that's weird too. I could see good karma for donating to a museum collection, but giving radioactive soda to a woman who clearly intends to drink it, not put it in a display case, not so much. On the bright side, that further expands our cushion against future good deeds, one of which is coming up shortly.
Oh, just look at my terrible manners. I'm Agatha. It's so nice to meet you. Now, what brings you all the way out here?
That's funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. See, I had this intuition that someone around here needed help.
Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just fine out here. Apart from supply caravans, you're the first person to set foot inside my house in a long time. I trade with them for whatever I need, and I stock up enough till they return.
That sounds risky. What if a caravan never arrives?
Well, I always have my husband's old radio set to fall back on. I used it once in an emergency when a group of raiders was getting a bit too close for comfort to my house. Otherwise, I use it to broadcast my so-called music I play from my homemade violin.
Intelligence check. I guess a homemade violin is never quite in tune.
Oh, you are a clever one. Yes, that's exactly the problem that I have with it. It doesn't quite play all of the notes correctly, and I have to constantly tinker with it. My trading depends on my violin. Without it, I have nothing to play, no way to make music. If you can bring me a violin, a better one, I'd feel much more secure.
A violin? That's hardly something that would have survived the war.
Yes, very sad, isn't it? Sad to think that no more musical instruments will ever be made the old way ever again. Well, fortunately, I know where perhaps the last real violin in the world exists.
And charisma check. You seem like a nice woman. Let me get that violin for you.
Well, that's just so sweet of you. I feel bad sending you off with nothing like this. I have a small amount of ammunition that my husband left behind. A box of odds and ends. I don't think I've opened it in years. If you do this for me, you're welcome to take whatever you need.
All right. I give you my word I'll do my best to recover a violin for you.
Oh, I don't think I've been this happy in years. As promised, here's the key to the ammunition box. It's right under the radio table. Before you leave, I have some information that may help you, at least a place to begin. It all starts with my great-great-grandmother Hilda back in 2077, before the bombs fell. Anyway, Hilda was quite a special woman, classically trained and exceptionally talented at the violin. Her pride and joy was her Stradivarius violin. I can only imagine how exquisite this instrument must have been. When the war reared its head, she was invited by Vault Tech into Vault 92. They claimed the vault would be dedicated to preserving musical talent.
Musical talent? Why would they care about that? I grew up in a vault, and the closest thing we had to a music program was that Butch's farts sounded like a trombone.
Vault Tech was always promoting the vaults being used for the preservation of the arts and all that nonsense. Hilda couldn't pass on a chance to meet many of the other musical talents of the world, so she accepted their invitation. Then the bombs fell, the vault was sealed, and my family never heard from her again.
Now, the only other vaults Luce has ever been in are 101, where she grew up, and 112, which was still functioning as intended, even if the intent was pretty messed up. So she has no reason to think there's anything wrong with Vault 92. Seems like the first question she'd ask is, what if the current owner feels the same way about it? Maybe even one of Hilda's descendants. Although it's probably better if we don't mention that stealing things is kind of our specialty. After 200 years, how can you be certain the violin is in decent shape?
She kept it in a special pressurized case. Inside the case is the perfect temperature and humidity for the instrument. If the case is still functioning, the Stradivarius would be in perfect shape. Hilda's Stradivarius was named the Soi Stradivarius. All of them had names. That's what I want you to get.
I know where Vault 92 is. I'll head there right away. Maybe flirt with some musicians. Sounds fun.
You do? Amazing! Thank you for this. You have no idea what this means to me.
We will help ourselves to the stuff in the ammo box. The total value probably isn't as much as we just got from Ronald, but it's way more than most people pay you for running errands. If you do this quest before you finish the Waters of Life, and you don't know where Vault 92 is, she sends you to Vault Tech headquarters to get a list of vaults and their locations, and that would be a nightmare. It's mostly robots inside, which with the robotics expert perk wouldn't be too bad, and a few super mutants, which if the robots didn't kill them we could sneak around, but getting there is another story. It's in the downtown ruins, and there are super mutants everywhere, including a boss right outside Vault Tech HQ that I think is hard-coded to be one tier higher than what can spawn in random encounters, so it'd be a master. Our closest fast travel point to Vault 92 was the Republic of Dave, and coincidentally, Old Olney, where we will still not be going, is directly between them. I think going around to the north is a little bit safer. There's an Enclave outpost to the south, which isn't a problem with the transponder, but there's a big raider camp at the farm. I forget its name. Chased Acres, maybe? Anyway, the only thing up here should be random wildlife, most of which is completely harmless. Or not. You see Alguai around here a lot, but with the Animal Friend perk, they wouldn't be hostile. We still have 2 or 3 doses of BuzzOff left if it's a scorpion. What is it? No, a robot. And we're back to hidden, so no problem. Yeah, there's a deathclaw right there. I think we're okay, but it wouldn't have hurt to have been a little farther north. Luce has a bad feeling there aren't going to be any musicians to flirt with in here. On the bright side, at least we won't have to rob one of Agatha's relatives. Like most vaults, there was a secret experiment going on that eventually resulted in everyone dying, or almost everyone. There are notes scattered around that some of the residents hatched an escape plan when things started going sideways, and the fact that the door is open and there are a bunch of supplies right here kind of implies that at least some of them made it. But we're here to grab a violin, not investigate a 200-year-old war crime. Bloatfly right there. Wait until that wanders off. Are you really not going to move? I'm not using BuzzOff for a bloatfly. Oh, okay. Yes, I am. If it stays aggroed, who knows what else might come investigate the commotion. Anyway, there's a new mod feature in the living quarters, but it seems much more likely the violin would be in the wing with classrooms and recording studios. But it's an accountability thing, like the inhibitor pulse on Lesko's terminal. You can trigger some kind of sonic pulse that kills all the mirelurks in that wing, which in the vanilla game doesn't bump up your kill count, but if you have strict accountability enabled in the mod, it does. But loose wouldn't be doing that either way. Oh, I think that one's going back the other way. If it turns around again, we can hide in one of the side rooms. We need to use the terminal in that room to unlock the recording studio. If it stays facing away from the door, we're probably okay, but that looks a little tight. This is kind of tense. Their sonic blast is easy to dodge at range, but this close we'd be toast. I think this is the right terminal. Yes. Open recording studio. Grab that skill book and get out of here. The violin's in that corner, but let's take a look in the safe first. Stealth boy. I'm not sure if that's always there or it's a random spawn, but either way, nice. Anyway, the violin is right over here. Like Agatha told us, it's in a special climate-controlled case. And don't forget, that's the window to the control room. The mirelurk might be watching. Nope, he's just in there thinking, more cowbell! Alright, let's get the violin back to Agatha. You know what? This is probably stupid, but I am going to loot that storage room. We already have what we came for, so if we get spotted, I'll just hit the power armor hotkey and gun it. Another stealth boy. And that one's not random. I knew there was something good in here, I just didn't remember it was that. And I will push my luck no further. We're out. After we finish looting this room, I mean. You know, we already got the main reward with the charisma check. There's an unmarked follow-up quest if you give her the violin, and the reward for that is one of the best handguns in the game, but Luce doesn't know that, and wouldn't care if she did. But she does know a guy who's more than happy to put a price on priceless pre-war artifacts. I have a very unique item for sale, a genuine Stradivarius violin.
Incredible! I've heard of those items. They were used to make music many, many years ago, I believe. Well, although it has no American historical significance, I can take it off your hands for 200 caps. How does that sound?
Speech check. I knew he'd buy it, but I either forgot or never knew that the violin is the exception to the rule that you need high barter skill to get his better prices. How about we make it 300 caps?
Well, that's wonderful. Here are your caps. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. I have to go now.
Well, I suppose that's goodbye then. Come again any time.
And we level up. Another salt in the wound choice because there aren't any more artifacts we can sell him in the game, but let's get barter up to 70. Put the rest in medicine. Yeah, make medicine 60 and put 1 point in repair. Apparently I was wrong about the caravans. We've leveled up several times and Wolfgang's repair skill is still only 75. I think maybe they only level with you until you're fully invested and their repair skill caps then. Because I know I've had characters who didn't invest in the caravans until much later in the game, and his repair skill went up to 100. So many good perks unlock at level 14. Contract Killer might seem useless to lose, but I'm pretty sure it has a hidden benefit that Talon Mercs stop spawning. Cyborg. The bonus energy weapon skill is useless to lose, and radiation resistance isn't as important since we bought the infirmary upgrade, but plus 10 damage resistance is hard to pass up. Lawbringer, same deal as Contract Killer, but with regulators. And I've been talking about light step since episode 1, but at this point it's more of a quality of life thing. Lou spends most of her time sneaking, so I rarely miss a mine or a trap because I'm in a hurry. Master Trader's another nice to have. If you do a lot of killing and looting corpses, you probably have more caps than you can spend by this point in the game, but Luce is finally doing alright money-wise. This is tough. I'm gonna take Cyborg. The damage resistance has gotta be worth more than insurance against missing a trap at this point in the game, and Talon Mercs haven't really been a problem because we've kept on top of our karma management. Plus, we already got an implant from Zimmer. In for a penny, in for a pound on the whole augmentation thing, I guess. And done.
What's the big idea?
Now, let's go buy Sydney a beer and talk shop. She's not going to believe this one. Plus, the stores in Underworld are open 24/7, so we don't have to wait to sell the other loot. Now I have a bit of a dilemma. Agatha's song didn't take as long as I thought it might, and Oasis is a fairly short quest, but I doubt we have time to finish it today, and I don't like to save and quit right in the middle of something. Guess we can head that direction and save when we get there. As for why Luz would go there, you can get a map marker from a random encounter, but it didn't spawn this time.
What do you want?
Hey, Fox. Didn't need anything, just passing through. Well, we can chalk it up to another premonition, even though using the same excuse twice in one episode might be stretching credibility a little bit. Oh! Actually, this makes perfect sense, lore-wise. Vault 92 isn't that far from Oasis, and this time it isn't her sensing something that she wants to investigate. It's something else drawing her there, something that reached out and touched her mind when she was close enough. Dun dun dun! Oasis is just about due west from Vault 92, maybe a tiny bit north, but it's a pain in the ass to find even when you have a map marker. I mean, there's this huge plateau that you can't miss, but there's only one way up. It's a narrow gully with multiple switchbacks, so it's really hard to spot unless you approach from exactly the right angle. I think that might be the plateau right there. There is an undiscovered location on the compass. No. It looks like you can get up there. That can't be it. The entrance to Oasis is on the west side of the plateau, so we'll need to go all the way around it. Alright, there's another compass marker. That's probably Oasis. The closer one must be the Clifftop Shacks. That's a super mutant camp. We don't want to go anywhere near that. This is not the entrance, but it is going in the right direction. If you approach from the west, there's a canyon with a rope bridge across it, and the path from the other side of that bridge leads straight to the entrance. Approaching from the east or the south, it's a lot of trial and error. I don't think I've ever gone all the way around and approached it from the north like this. And maybe we just lucked out, but this seems a lot safer. There's a ton of nasty stuff in the area around the Clifftop Shacks. Okay. There's the rope bridge. We're in the right place. We can already see a bit of green grass. There's also one of Three Dogs' news segments mentions Oasis, and he goes on about how there are actually green trees and stuff, but he doesn't give the location, and you don't get a map marker for listening to it. And he says he was high when he found it, so you might think he was just hallucinating or something until you actually find it yourself. But we are definitely seeing more green the higher we go. And there it is. That's the entrance to Oasis. See if we can get close enough to get the map marker without them force greeting us. There we go. Well, actually, we might as well get validation of the presence in Luz's head.
Outsider, you have arrived. Please, come closer. I have something of the utmost urgency to speak to you about. Do hurry. He doesn't like to be kept waiting.
Okay, now I'm going to call it a day. If you bail out when I start talking about technical stuff, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment before you go. The way the noise flush works is kind of weird. Instead of killing the mirelurks the same way the inhibitor pulse kills the fire ants in Grey Ditch, the Vault 92 terminals just disable an X marker. There's a hidden activator with a script that monitors the X marker, and if it's disabled, the script plays the sound effect and kills the mirelurks. The sound effect is a loop, so then the script waits a few seconds and stops it. It seems like it would have been way simpler to make a sound effect with a fixed duration and just play it and kill the mirelurks in the terminal script. But the ref ID of the X marker is Vault 92B mirelurk frenzy X mark, which implies that at some point in design they thought about making the noise flush just frenzy the mirelurks instead of killing them, and then have them calm down after the sound stopped, in which case doing it this way would have made sense. Anyway, unlike Marigold Station, where the only way to trigger the inhibitor pulse is from Lesko's portable terminal, there are 3 terminals in Vault 92 that can start the noise flush. One near the men's dorm, one near the women's dorm, and one in the security office. With a quantum beside it, but no way Luce was going in there, especially since we'd already completed Sierra's quest at that point. So I put a trigger zone around each terminal, all instances of the same object, so they use the same script. One's a persistent ref and is the enable parent of the other 2, so the cleanup code only needs to disable and delete one ref. Also, unlike the inhibitor pulse, there's no vanilla variable to check if the noise flush was already used, and the trigger script can't check the enabled status of the X marker because for some reason the vanilla script re-enables it after it kills the mirelurks, which again would make sense if the noise flush was originally going to frenzy them. You might want to use it more than once if they didn't all kill each other the first time. The only reason to make a lethal flush repeatable would be if the mirelurks respawned, but they don't. Fortunately, there is a way to tell. The vanilla script sets each mirelurk's killer to itself, which might indicate they explicitly didn't want to blame the player, but more likely it's just because they wanted to make their heads explode. Which body part explodes, if any, is an optional parameter to the kill function, but it comes after the also optional who killed me parameter, so you have to put something in there too if you want to specify an exploding body part. They could have set it to the player, but that would have been inconsistent with all the other places in the game that you kill things with terminals or dialogue and it doesn't bump up your kill count. Whatever the case, back in the kill count trigger script, if any of the mirelurks have who killed me set to themselves, it knows the player used the noise flush before installing PAM 2.1. It only starts the kill count fix quest if they didn't, because otherwise it would even work retroactively, and that would be inconsistent with the way the other accountability features in the mod work. Then either way, it deletes itself. It's worth noting the trigger script doesn't check if the mod feature is enabled, just in case the player decides to turn it on after they enter the trigger zone, but before they use the noise flush. The quest script counts how many mirelurks are still alive, and how many of the dead ones were killed by the noise flush. If any of them are still alive, it just keeps waiting. After they're all dead, it can finally do its thing. If the feature is enabled, and any of them were zapped by the noise flush, it increments creatures killed by that number. And either way, it stops itself. Which brings us to the update script. By default, the mod doesn't adjust your kill count for using the noise flush because the player doesn't know it'll kill the mirelurks. In fact, if they read all the terminals and know the full story of the Vault experiment, the noise generators drove the Vault dwellers insane, but they were definitely non-lethal. Which means there's also a plot reason to think they might have originally designed it to frenzy the mirelurks instead of killing them, and then changed it later for whatever reason. Anyway, this is why I gave the presets their own variable. If you have strict accountability turned on, the update script enables the noise flush kill count adjustment, otherwise it leaves it disabled. I also updated the configuration menus to enable or disable this feature individually and to set it appropriately if you change presets. But like I say, if you already have strict accountability turned on, you don't have to go back into the menu. The update script does it for you. I did consider adding an option to make the noise flush work as I suspect they originally designed, but I didn't for a few reasons. First, that would really muddy the waters on the accountability side of the mod. Second, there was no way to do it without changing vanilla objects and creating a potential conflict with other mods. Most importantly, I'm guessing the reason they made it lethal in the first place was because the frenzy effect didn't accomplish much from the player's point of view. The noise flush could set the mirelurk's aggression so they aggro on anything they see, but they're pretty widely spaced through the level, so most of them would probably never see each other. You might end up with a couple dead and a couple wounded, but most of them off by themselves at full health until the player stumbles across them. If you're playing a character who's focused more on tech than combat, that just wouldn't be nearly as useful as the lethal version. And despite New Vegas getting more praise for accommodating different playstyles, and deservedly so, Fallout 3 was no slouch in that department either. And that's it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.